Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. Now, what a boring time it is in the NBA right now. Obviously, we're about to finish up the month of February, just past the All-Star break. This is where teams either see the contending rosters coming from the trade deadline start to try to ignite some sort of momentum, like what we've seen with Cleveland. Maybe teams that actually see themselves being relatively competitive, at least in a first-round series, start to actually kick into gear like we've seen Charlotte over the past few weeks. And also just after your trade deadline acquisitions, but then you also see a lot of teams really tail off. And those are the teams that consider themselves to be tanking for this year's ultimate draft class. You got like your Wizards seem to be checked out, the Jazz seem to be relatively checked out. A lot of those teams around the bottom are just losing a lot of belief into finding reason to actually play for the rest of this season. But nevertheless, we will get to an urgent side of the NBA in probably another 2-3 weeks or so. But as we do rally into what is more of a boring trough of the NBA season, just one guy I really wanted to shout out, and I made a post about him recently, but it was more about the idea around the most underrated superstar in the NBA. To me, I answer that question with Donovan Mitchell. Now, in terms of superstars, I probably only have about 14 or 15 guys in the NBA. So basically that top 15 group in the NBA, which I would have still had the same as when I did my top 100 rankings over last summer. But Donovan Mitchell, to me, in that group, is the most underrated and underappreciated. Now, again, this is a group of guys that all get glamorous respect across the league, in debates, all in MVP discussions, annually, all the time. But Donovan Mitchell, to me, kind of represents a guy that just because of the lack of playoff success, he has never gotten the same regard as a lot of guys in that same center of conversation. Jalen Brunson's made a conference final. Donovan Mitchell hasn't, so Jalen Brunson seems to get a lot more respect. Also playing in a bigger market. Anthony Edwards, a lot more glamorous of a play style. Plus, he does have the back-to-back conference finals. I do think sometimes we can put too much emphasis on a playoff seed and like berth, like where you get to as well. I think when you talk about teams that separate between a semi-finals, like a second-round contender, and a team that can make the conference finals, it's not all that much, and it's not all that much that comes down to the superstar alone. A lot of it is just matchup variance through the playoff seeding and the playoff format. And a lot of teams actually get lucky depending on who they actually have to play in the first round, second round, according to playoff seeding and how they individually match up against other teams. And I think a team like Cleveland last year, like we're talking about a team that played literally the best offense in the NBA over the past 2 years. When they were healthy, Darius Garland, not 100% whatsoever. Evan Mobley, not 100% whatsoever. 2 All-NBA talents on the roster as well, just not feeling themselves. A lot of that load was fully up to Donovan Mitchell right there. And I think he's actually performed every single time. And the fact is, though, we're not talking about a guy that supposedly impacts offense at a super elite level. But in terms of just scoring cushion for a team, like what this guy actually provides is pretty absurd. And I think this season, he's also just showcasing the load carrying, not for just the playoffs. I know last season, the regular season, a lot of the offensive load was more in Darius Garland. And then Donovan Mitchell was more or less coasting there in terms of his usage rates compared to previous years. And then the postseason with Garland out, he had to really spike up that volume. And he did it effortlessly. But this regular season, obviously Garland wasn't healthy up until the trade. James Harden, somewhat passive coming into the rotation. Evan Mobley, not as, effective as he was last year. But this guy's been absolutely absurd. And Cleveland still tied for the 3rd seed record with New York at the moment. And I have no doubt that they will actually climb up to second and outtake Boston, who are only 2 games ahead of them at the moment. But in large part, literally due to what Donovan Mitchell can do night to night as a pure scoring force. We're talking about a guy who this season, 28 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists on 57% effective field goal percentage. That is really, really high level efficiency rates to be scoring the ball at. Per court clean the glass is a plus 11 on-off differential overall to this Cleveland offense. So he is impacting at a super elite level as well. It's not just the scoring numbers that are matching it. He's a plus 8 points per 100 possessions just to their offense. So what this guy's actually doing, what he actually means in terms of actually just continually drawing the defense into rotation, drawing a ton of gravity as well. Literally the only piece in their half court for the entire season that has been able to draw valid results possession to possession as well. And a big part of this aggression and the extra responsibilities had to take for literally just this regular season alone has really stemmed from a increase in just full-on rim pressure due to the subtraction of Darius Garland's literal driving impact to each game. We're seeing Donovan Mitchell this season literally just bumping up his drives per game as well. He's now one of the elite volume drivers in the NBA, but also pairing that with an efficiency boost as well. And usually that doesn't happen. I mean, last year, obviously, he would have been minimally a little bit more selective than usual on his driving takes. A lot more closeout attacking when you see next to just a exceptional rim pressuring advantage creator like Darius Garland. But this season, Donovan Mitchell as just the isolation, just the initial primary ball handling option as well, just absolute high motor ball drives, and he's converting at just an absurd rate right now. And his actual willpower has just been absolutely fun to watch. And out of guys to have at least 750 or more drives this season, that is the elite volume drivers range. I think there's only 5 or 6 guys in that range. But Donovan Mitchell ranks number 1 in terms of just field goal percentage, raw efficiency. 59% of his driving takes are converted. And he's converting 66% of his looks in the restricted area now. That is absurdly elite for a guy that is, at the end of the day, 6'3". And so just what Donovan Mitchell is actually doing, leading to super efficient basketball, is absolutely absurd. And when we do project the Cavs to the postseason once again, obviously we've had a few back-to-back years of pretty upsetting results overall, especially last season. 64 wins in the regular season, we would have thought the best regular season offense to actually stabilize against a team like Indiana. We didn't see that quite results, but again, the firepower that was subtracted due to injuries, that played a huge role into that. But in terms of how we look at Donovan Mitchell, again, leading this Cleveland team to the postseason, the big reason why I'm so convinced is literally the night-to-night intensity and elite basketball motor that he always plays with every single night. That is relatively controlled as well. He never plays like super out of control and out of rhythm and out of touch. He's always under control, always understands just how to apply the full 3-level scoring force that he actually has, the whole 3-level scoring skill set. And it is overall rim pressure focused. He doesn't lean towards the pull-ups. We saw last year how we could nitpick at Anthony Edwards game to game sometimes, where he does focus on really just trying to get that pull-up jumper going completely. And then the rim pressure focus fades a little bit. With Donovan, it never fades whatsoever. And what is so encouraging about Donovan Mitchell as the 1A option is his inevitable shot quality. Again, when we talk about rim pressure focus, he creates really high quality looks at the rim, obviously. But in terms of just the pull-up looks and the pull-up quality that he can create continuously, and as a defender as well, you're either anticipating really 2 things, either a drive or a shot settle, like a pull-up shot. And that kind of dictates how your defensive stance typically is possession to possession, depending on who you're guarding in whatever action. You're either more on your heels, stepping back a little bit, or you're either on your toes, fronting up, trying to apply a bit more ball pressure to force that drive. And the thing is with Donovan Mitchell, when you apply such obscene pressure at the rim, physically and athletically, you get that extra airspace to actually get comfortable on your pull-up looks. Your hesitation dribbles are way more effective, and his release point is so staunchingly high that gives him just another advantage. So his jump shot quality is literally one of the best in the NBA when we talk about off the dribble types of jump shooters. And this year, he just has been exceptional at it once again. Obviously, the efficiency has tailed off a little bit He's had a dulling few games since the All-Star break. But overall, just in the aggregate, what he has done, combining, again, the jump shot quality and the athletic qualities to actually get literally to the rim. He's settling more in the intermediate range. He's making that 52% of his mid-range looks this year. Deep, long mid-range looks, I'm talking about too. So everything has come together for him. And again, in the postseason, we're talking about a guy who, for the last 2 years, in the playoffs, is a 28 point per game scorer each night. 51% effective field goal percentage, so obviously the efficiency has dropped. We haven't seen this guy this efficient in a few years, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. But he just plays with this complete audacity that is also harnessed under control. And we talk about a guy that throws in all of these nice high gather moves and these how he can split high drops and blitzing coverages as well. We're just talking about an athletic phenomenon right now as well, who is so absurdly skilled and understands how to literally hunt quality shots for himself. And so I take that back. When I said he's a 28 point per game scorer in the playoffs, we're talking about a career 28 point per game scorer. In the last 2 postseasons alone, this guy's averaged 35 and 4 in the last 2 playoff runs, and it's 53% effective field goal percentage. Again, the efficiency's not too great. But this guy's completely absurd in the production scale format, but also just the nightly willpower that he brings all the time. And that's why, obviously, he has the limitations. Like, he can't harness pace as elegantly as guys like Luka and SGA can. Obviously, he lacks the over-the-top advantages, and that leads to rough bailout reads every now and then. And sometimes when he's not splitting the blitzes physically himself, when he's trying to pass out from doubles and hedges, he can actually have some sort of trouble making those over-the-top reads as well. He can't see over the top as well. The spatial awareness kind of lacks a little bit, even compared to guys like SGA, let alone your Luka Doncic's and your Tyrese Haliburton's. But overall, like, what this guy's doing as a literal leader has been so great to watch for Cleveland this year, and it's a big reason why I think they are still my favorite, as they were in the offseason, still my favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. And I have no doubt that Donovan Mitchell will put them in the best position possible for that sort of an outcome. Now, moving on to the next topic I wanted to hit off, and it's more about just the DNA of literally the defending champs, Oklahoma City. Now, they've been without SGA for quite a few games now, and Ajay Mitchell. JDub obviously was in the lineup for a little bit. They had their wins against LA and Phoenix. Then he exited the lineup once again. So they're literally without their 3 primary driving creators. Literally the blueprint for how OKC actually get their defense into actual rotation continuously. And they've been winning the past few games. Obviously, they played Detroit today, and Detroit got pretty much, to me, I think they got embarrassed against San Antonio in my eyes. Obviously, it was a fairly close game, but I think that fourth quarter, like, they just couldn't do anything to shake Victor Wembanyama's defensive impact. So I think Detroit will really attack this OKC game at home with a lot of vengeance. So I don't think they'll get the win today, but who knows? But over the past few games, and especially focusing on their wins against Cleveland, a team that has been the best team in the league over the past 15 games. They snapped, I think, their 9-game win streak as well. And then their win against Toronto, who typically Toronto is a pretty poor matchup for OKC every single time we seem to play them as well. But I think just when we speak about what makes a champion, it's obviously star power. And that's when we talk about how SGA is like the second best player in the world. But a big part of what makes a championship contender in today's NBA, like obviously it's stuff like depth, but what makes all of this stuff go is like your literal culture and your principles and what you can actually fall back on, like your habits as well. And when we talk about what offers these championship teams a super high floor, which is to me more impactful when we talk about a team standpoint, your super high floor is literally just backed up. For this OKC team, it's completely built upon their defensive principles night to night. And it's literally why they have their success right now, when all 3 of their creators are out. Because they can actually build enough margin, build enough more possessions for themselves offensively to execute, when defensively they're just absolutely mauling teams night to night. And they can go on these just heroic stretches like we saw against Cleveland when they forced them into 10 first quarter turnovers. And they scored 40 straight points with their lack of firepower already in that lineup. So just what OKC's been able to do in terms of just maintaining that floor that they have night to night and the night to night margin that they establish through their defensive qualities. Again, it's through their ball pressure and their ball denial continuously on every single possession, especially in the half court. And that's when you disrupt all of the half court quality. And like that is super valuable when we talk about a team like Cleveland hangs their hat on literal half court offensive quality creation between James Harden and what he can do as a ball screen initiator, what Evan Mobley can do sometimes, and Jared Allen can do as play finishers, Dean Wade as a play finisher, what Donovan Mitchell can do in the half court as an isolation monster. But when you have guys that just continually pressure the ball, pressure passing lanes, pressure driving lanes as well, offering that always just continuous help, but also just in-time rotations back out, covering closeouts at such a high level, help at the rim as well. It's not even just Chet Holmgren's absurd rotation abilities down low. It's what Isaiah Hartenstein and big Jalen Williams can do as well. Always on time positionally down low. And in terms of the ball denial as well, again, like we said, pressuring passing lanes. But it's not even just the perimeter guys that do this. It's literally Isaiah Hartenstein pressuring big catches all the way above the three-point line. And when you can also force and get a hand on those passes and force the big man to have to stretch out 3 feet above the arc as well, that builds more cushion for your defense every single possession. And they just give themselves the best hand that they can on every possession by playing with such a high defensive motor and such a knack for the ball. And obviously we talk about that. It's not just, the anticipation and the timing and whatnot and the aggressiveness, but literally, again, when you take out SGA and you take out, obviously Ajay Mitchell's a fast defender, obviously, but you take out wing Jalen Williams, the all-star Jalen Williams. This is just a team now that what you're left with is just an array of foot speed, on the ground, and just physicality at the hip. And on the perimeter as well, that's just going to absolutely startle any line of offensive creators that you throw at that defensive unit. And when you add to that all the interlinked chemistry that they've had over the past few years, which is completely evident just all the time, just through their switches, always communicating from their big man as well, through their rotations and all of their coverages. It's absolutely beautiful to watch. And they all share this level of intensity that never fades, and it only really spikes without these stars in the lineup because of that extra urgency that they actually have possession to possession, to actually win the defensive possession battle as much as they can, again, to build up that cushion so they can try sum up as much offensive juice as they can to actually will out these games they've been able to do. And I'm only focusing mostly on these past 2 games because these are games against literal contenders right now. Cleveland is my favorite to come out of the East. They were fully healthy in that matchup. Toronto is a team, obviously, that's probably trying to battle for at least a second round sort of floor. So maybe they can beat a first round series, but they're a team that's looking to be competitive over the next few years. And so it's just pretty amazing what OKC can do, actually being able to will out these games. And I know you might say it's just a 2-game stretch, but how many teams can you actually say, I'm going to take away your 3 best offensive creators and advantage creators, and you're going to have to pull out 2 games against 2 teams that are pretty invigorated at this point in the season right now. Pretty amazing, but it's enough about the defense. We've heard enough about the defense over the past few years. What we're going to harp into is more of the offensive juice that OKC have been able to milk out without their 3 offensive creators. And we know OKC, with or without these 3 guys in the lineup, they always prefer steady drivers as the preference option to ignite their offensive structure all the time. And when SGA, JDub, Ajay Mitchell, when they continually beat players to spots and break down the defense as literal drivers and rim pressurers, either with their physical attributes, their nimble agility attributes, or just their deadbolt speed attributes, it allows them to create these kick-out lanes that actually get their surrounding high-quality athletes in driving kick motion, attacking closeouts, and that's created, again, off those designated driving movements. But without those guys, it's a lot harder for OKC to actually create that offensive juice, create the offensive rhythm for those closeout attackers, like your Aaron Wiggins, like your Isaiah Joes, like your Cason Wallace's, your Alex Caruso's. And the thing is, like, obviously, we have an all-star that's still in this unit. Like, I'm talking about the 3 offensive creators. But Chet Holmgren typically isn't as much of a reliant, like a offensive creator that OKC is reliant on game to game to create all of these advantages. We've seen him get physically checked out of really both of these games. I know he had a massive first quarter against Cleveland when they went on that 40-point first quarter. But against Toronto, I mean, basically checked out the entire game due to the Scotty Barnes matchup, with obviously Scotty Barnes, old defensive candidate at the moment, one of the best defensive builds in basketball, playing with an insane defensive level of intensity himself. So that just wasn't a matchup Chet was going to be successful in at all. And when your only other star gets physically checked out, and again, when we talk about Chet Holmgren, like, a lot of people might look at this and go, how this guy get an all-star nod? Especially not even just like a fill-in nod, like he got a literal just shoe-in all-star for this year. It's because of what he does as a ceiling raiser, not what he does as a floor raiser. This guy literally excels with great talent around him. And we're talking about one of the best and most overpowered off-ball talents on both ends of the floor in the NBA. But in a night like this, where advantages aren't created for him, his play finishing skill set, which is his biggest skill set, isn't going to be as tantalizing as it typically is. And like against Toronto, he was a -12. He was actually, I think he had like a 112 defensive rating, which was actually really bad for... No, I think he had a 125 defensive rating in this game. So it was pretty awful. 3 for 8 from the field, not really aggressive, literally from the get-go. I think he knew he couldn't get any sort of dribble penetration against Scotty Barnes. But with him not being more of a non-factor in the creation load, Lou Dort, we've seen Lou Dort, even like over the years, even since like 2021, post-bubble, we've seen stretches where Lou Dort has actually been semi-reliable in some sort of games to be actually create some offense. But even he was struggling against Toronto. We talk about 5 of 16 from the field. Pretty ugly as well. And some of the catch and shoot shots that he actually settles for, and the audacity of some of his like looks beyond the 3-point line. And then when we talk about what Dort can do as a driver and attacking closeouts, he doesn't have any typical size advantages against a team like Toronto for him to be successful throughout 48. I know during clutch time against that Toronto matchup, he hit 2 really big, huge push-off jumpers created from his drives. But throughout a 48-minute game against a team as athletic and as physical and as strong and mobile as Toronto is at their wing depth position, a guy like Lou Dort wasn't able to be successful there. But this is still a team that can create margin not just through their defense and points off turnovers and in the fast break, but also on the glass as well. They just absolutely dismantled Toronto on the glass, 49-34. Big part is a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein and their guards continually being active on the back line on their offensive line too. Guys like Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, always attacking the glass. Jared McCain even getting into that sort of dirty work as well. So obviously what OKC can do, there's a lot of limitations right now, but we've got to talk about the role players that have completely stepped up and have been like literal... One of these guys has been a literal star over the past few games, and I think you guys know who I'm going to be talking about, and that is Cason Wallace, who's been completely unlocked as a driver over these past 2 games specifically. Now, when we talk about Cason Wallace, obviously, I had him as a top 100 player in the NBA, which is actually a big regard for a guy that puts up like raw stats, 8 points a game, and last year was in and out of the starting unit. But Cason Wallace right now is literally one of the best role players in the NBA right now. And just what he's doing right now just proves a bit more icing on the cake of what he can actually do, raising a team's floor as well as the offensive creator. Now, when we talk about his actual frame, he brings a pretty rangy frame, good wingspan as well, nice long strides. he actually brings a pretty subtly strong frame behind him. It's a compact 195 pounds, but he knows how to deliver it. We know on the defensive end how he can absorb a lot of physicality as well. He can actually throw a bit of that physicality on the offensive end. So that's been really good to see. He brings like a somewhat of an agile frame, but he's also a guy with a lot of speed behind him. In the last 2 games alone, he's put up for OKC, and like they would be nowhere near this position if he wasn't doing this sort of stuff. But 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists over the past 2 games. He's 18 of 33 from the field, so super efficient. And that 3 ball has been hitting tremendously. He's 8 for 13 on threes over the past 2 games. That was always the biggest question mark with Cason coming out of college as well. And over these past 2 games, we talk about, I think it's 17 assists over the past 2 games, only 3 turnovers in total. So it's been super efficient, even just handling the ball in general. And we saw guys like Alex Caruso actually get really uncomfortable handling the ball as the table setter against a team like Toronto. He had back-to-back turnovers, trying to dribble the ball and hold and maintain his dribble against Scotty Barnes. But what Cason Wallace has been able to do with the rangy frame, with the extra wingspan, with the extra twitchy agility that he has just as a general great athlete in the NBA, he's been able to handle the ball really safely right now. Obviously, the handle is still relatively shaky. He's never actually been seen in this role, though. We know changing direction isn't anything super smooth when we talk like speed-wise, like we talk about SGA. Obviously, how elegant he is, changing directions, changing speeds. But there, like with Cason, the point that makes this so impressive is that there really isn't any elite trait that he brings to the game. JDub has this downhill, single, powerful momentum that makes him really hard to stop once he gets that open angle. SGA, it's more about the just hyper elite, just agility toolkit that he can throw at any defender right now. And like that goes into the anticipation of angles. Again, the shifting direction, shifting your balance, the weight distribution, shifting speeds all the time. That's what he brings in the agility department. Ajay Mitchell, again, he's more of a matchup problem because he is relatively undersized, but he knows how to attack angles. Again, he has his own power. He has his own nimbleness. Again, agility. Again, he's taken a lot from SGA in terms of being able to literally change direction, pit, stop, start, that type of, driving success. That's what Ajay Mitchell brings. But Cason Wallace doesn't bring anything super elite to the table. But that's what makes this so impressive. And the thing is, as an athlete, he brings at least enough when we talk about a guy that can at least attack selective matchups and find success throughout a game. That's why we've seen over the past 2 games just relentlessly attacking Emmanuel Quickley and James Harden as his primary matchups. And it's been amazing to see. And the thing is with Cason, again, I say there's no elite trait, but at least with Cason, if he gets any sort of straight line angle, that downhill one straight line momentum is absurdly strong and powerful. And even guys like Scotty Barnes can't even get back in front of that in transition. And it's really hard to get back in front of overall as well, just fighting that positioning when someone is so powerful and they're creating so much just literal strength in their downhill drives. And that's, again, in transition, he proved that in success. But overall, Cason has just been playing with a ton of confidence, just absorbing everything he can out of just his athletic frame to create that downhill penetration, which has been literally what OKC has needed without their 3 main drivers in the unit. And then when you talk about just the 3 ball just dropping over the past 2 games, 8 of 13. But teams are just testing the jumper right now. Obviously, for Cleveland, it was more off the dribble. Off the catch, like spot-up situation types of shots. But Toronto was literally just going under ball screens continuously. Cason started the game 8 for 8 or 7 for 7. And they come out in the second half and they just give Cason Wallace just a wide open 3 once again, just going under the ball screen, literally daring him to shoot. And he's just had the time on these possessions when teams go under to get his feet set and just knock down these looks with absolute confidence. He's been an absolute revelation for OKC right now, and I'm sure a lot of what he's been able to take from SGA, from JDub, and Ajay Mitchell over the years, he's been able to throw out there. But he's been absolutely awesome. And I don't know when Cason Wallace's contract is going to be up. Maybe it's actually the end of this season. But he's in for a big payday as a role player who's going to have a lot of buzz around the league if OKC decide to not pay him, which I do not see an outcome where OKC will not want to keep this guy. But besides Cason Wallace, like, we know the offensive juice can't just come from 23, 6, and 8 from Cason a night. It's got to come from the other guys that bring stuff to the table. I'm not going to really harp on Isaiah Hartenstein and big Jalen Williams too much, but, like, these are two of the, to me, like, this is going to sound like an absurd statement, but those are two of the best passing big man talents that the game has ever seen. I'm not saying they're top 5 big man passer of all time, but maybe top 15, both of them. Like, how many bigs in general can you name that are just better passing talents, passing flair? Talk about pass, like bullet speed, execution, the DHO handoffs, just the flashy reads that they can make, just the communication style, just the ball placement that they actually have, spotting cutters. J-Will and Hardenstein are two of the best at spotting cutters that I've ever seen from the center position. I don't think there are many better big man passes than what these two are right now. And what they can do as literal DHO hubs and fulcrums has been really great. And like Jalen Williams, big Jalen Williams, absolutely hitting that 3-ball at the top of the key like he typically does. Hardenstein, he's had that soft touch floater going all the time now. Again, that connection that he's had with Cason Wallace over the past 2 games, stretching out to at least around that, just inside the free throw line mark. These two guys have been exceptional. But in terms of the perimeter talent, again, because we are talking about a lack of perimeter creation. I know the perimeter creation comes from the DHO hubs. But in terms of what Jared McCain, Isaiah Joe, and I'm going to throw in Aaron Wiggins here and what they've been able to do as offensive contributors, at least, in these past few games has been really impressive to watch. And especially Isaiah Joe. Now, from Isaiah Joe, we're going to stretch out more than just this 2-game sample size. It's going to be the last 6 games, this guy's been making 5 threes a game on 56% shooting. He's scoring the ball. He's scoring 19 points a game on 70% effective field goal percentage over the last 6 games alone. We saw in the Toronto game, he offered, I think, 22 points. 19 of those came in the third quarter as well, including back-to-back 4-point plays off the catch, where they basically needed to review both calls because the defender really got into the landing space as well, like illegally. But this guy's been a tremendous chase action spammer, again, with your DHO hubs as well. He just brings a lot more value. He actually forces defenders to really come up and pressure at the level as well. Whatever, obviously Isaiah Joe doesn't really have too much strength behind that frame, so dribble penetration isn't as consistent with him. When he comes off the screen and players are pressuring him at the hip, he can't actually establish himself and get himself ready to make like an effective read darting a cutter. So he doesn't have that strength behind him, but he's just bringing gravity, which is just going to be valuable for OKC when they try to milk whatever offensive margins that they can at this point in time. He's been absolutely tremendous, bringing the offensive skill that this OKC unit just hasn't had much at all. And we talk about just the contested catch shot making. There's not many better than Isaiah Joe over the past few years alone. It's literally been unstoppable over these past 6 games. And he, like, in terms of gravity, and this is off the ball, not when he's involved in those chase action schemes, but his literal ability when, like, he's raising his position above the hash mark, like, that just, like, above the arc so much, it just allows him to add just more maximal separation from his defender. And that gives him just more airspace when he actually gets the ball off the catch to be able to launch. And his release arc is so high right now, and it's just connecting at such a high level. He's been absolutely absurd, just offering not just gravity, but added gravity on top of that as well by literally spacing himself above the hash point. So he's been great. Aaron Wiggins, obviously, he has struggled a little bit too, but when you look at a team that's like an OKC team that literally doesn't have their 3 creators, you're going to look at Aaron Wiggins every single time to offer some sort of offensive viability. And, he still does do that. We're talking about a guy, one of the more finesse leading closeout attackers that you'll find around the league as well. He has enough footwork, enough athleticism as well. He knows how to penetrate certain, like, specific angles with a certain level of power. to actually eventuate those as well. He brings a lot of shot making juice off the catch in general. So like he's going to be a bigger piece as well, as SGA probably sits out for a few more games too. But Jared McCain, the new arrival in Oklahoma City, the last guy I want to point off for this OKC team, 12 points and 4 rebounds over his past 5 games with OKC. But he's made 9 threes on 47% shooting. So he's 9 for 19 on threes over these past 5 games. We're talking about a guy with just more improved offensive feel. Again, when we talk about Isaiah Joe, we talk about the lack of strength, but he brings more gravity than a guy like McCain does, literally just because of the shot-making prowess that he brings. McCain is a very credible shooter, but he understands how to use his gravity, relocates really well, just like Isaiah Joe does. Not just relocating on the three-point line, but also darting and diving to the rim for cutters where guys like Hartenstein and big Jalen Williams are going to knock that pass down every single time. McCain just understands how to use that gravity as well. And McCain's gravity is perceived as more intense right now because of the lack of firepower that this OKC unit has. So McCain is getting a little bit more respect than he typically would from defenders right now. But regardless, this guy has been really nice, just offering a bit more ball handling juice in pick and roll as well when he does want to offer some sort of penetration. He's just trying to do as much as he can, getting the defense in literal rotation. And that's been really important for OKC. Obviously, Nikola Topic hasn't really gotten too much time. He's struggling to find success. Obviously, a guy that's going to be athletically impeded against a team like Toronto as well, where he doesn't have the same strength and physicality advantages. But overall, OKC are just sticking with this sense of belief that they actually can win games through this super high floor. When you can actually lean on your offensive role players to create, again, enough quality in their system to at least try and outlast these offenses that they are completely deterring with their defense. It's been really fun to watch, and it's why OKC are still the championship favorite, is because of this super high floor that they have night to night. And at the end of the day, when you have to win 16 playoff games and you can play up to a total of 28 playoff games, it's not just your ceiling that matters. It's the floor that you offer night to night that you can always rely on to give your best foot every single night. That's what this OKC team is proving to teams right now, that they have not gone away with their defensive prowess in their system, and their role players have only improved this year. Now, I appreciate you guys for tuning into that one. That was a bit of obviously as an OKC fan, I've really enjoyed this past patch as well. And I was talking to my friend the other day, and he's a Boston fan, and he mentioned how he prefers watching like this Boston team compared to previous years. And big part of that, and like I find the same thing when OKC are dulled with talent like they are at this point in time. But a big part of that is like the lack of expectation that you have. You'll see a similar thing with Phoenix fans. The past few years, like Phoenix hated watching that Phoenix team with KD, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. But this Phoenix team right now, with Dylan Brooks, they love watching this team of just absolute dogs right now, just exceeding expectations. And again, when you watch a team that's just so deprived of like just basic talent and skill, it's really fun to see them actually come out and will out these games based off their system, their belief, and their floor. That's what has been fun for me. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I hope you guys just, hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll get some sort of more of an invigoration from the NBA in terms of just overall interest. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in for this one. I'll catch you guys in the next one.